Hello.
Oh.
Happy 11/11/2022. Welcome to Living Our Values with me, Amy Johnson and Sheila Arthur.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah. So we are here with our monthly 11/11 on this kind of momentous 11/11/22 Tuesday, celebrating our second anniversary of starting the 11/11. And 11/11 means that we go live here on Zoom every month on the 11th of the month at 11 a.m. PST to talk about what it means to live our values. Yes.
Yeah.
Extra special in the 11th month, which is when we happen to start it. So it's a lot of 11s, and being at our second anniversary, that's a lot of 2s as well. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But we are here. What we've created is a place to come together and talk about what it means to live our values. We think of living our values as, you ready for our little acronym?
I sure am.
Yeah, to live our values every day is a radical act of love.
I love that.
So when we actively live our values, we are spreading more of our most genuine self, our highest self, which is a true act of love out into the world. And we see that as a necessary thing these days. And living our values is a different way to live in a world that feels increasingly more chaotic, extreme, or opposed, and binary. And so this is a way to overcome some of that black and white thinking and extremism, I guess I would say, too. This is a more inclusive path that is really considering our best self and how to put that out in the world. So what are core values? Why are we talking about it? That's the question that we often get. Like, what are they anyway? Most people have a general vague idea of what core values are, but don't fully understand what it is. Yes, they're guiding posts, but what does that really mean? So we define core values in our Discover Your Core Values workshops, our Create Your Inner Compass workshops, and here on Living Our Values as single words or short phrases that connect you to that kind of authentic, most genuine self. It is, think of it as a bridge between your inner self and the outside world. It's also a bridge from the outside world to your inner self. So if you're out and about and kind of lost and not sure what's going on, you can connect back to yourself through your core values. You can also connect to the outside world to decide where you want to go and what you want to do with your values. The bridge goes both ways. There's that two again.
Right. It's an open bridge.
It's an open bridge. It's two-way. Yeah. So that's what the core values provide you. It's a tool that offers you a bridge, or they are actually the bridge. They're your inner compass. And then having a set of them, 5 to 7 is what we call a set of core values, gives you an inner compass. So you can see where you want to go and don't have to kind of be lost out there without any real idea of who you are and what matters to you. So once you have your set, and we help you go through that process in our workshops, you're able to better navigate what's happening in your own world and in your own self so that it matches. And that's what we do here. Now, one last thing I'll say about values is that each of us has a lot of values in us, right? And what are values? Words like integrity, responsibility, joy, connection, interdependence, sustainability, grow and flourish, love of learning. I mean, there are many, many values. We have found that each of us has a core set of 5 to 7 values where that really represents a lot of what matters to us and who we are as people. Less than that, we tend to be forgetting something about ourselves or missing a part. And more than that, it gets a little chaotic and overwhelming. So that is why we call it inner compass. That set becomes an inner compass. And that's what we focus on here, are the core values and how to use them to really live a life where you are feeling happy and connected and fulfilled in whatever you're doing, being that work or shopping or being with your family, your chosen family or your actual family. So anything to add, Sheila, about what
Oh,
values are?
yeah, I was just thinking about how it also provides that inner peace and that sense of alignment, because a lot of times when we're out of alignment with our values, that's when we know that there's something going on, like we're out in the world and
Mhm.
suddenly we bump up against something that doesn't quite feel right, or there's an internal dissonance or discomfort that comes up. And these are ways to know whether you're living from your values or there's something that's out of alignment. And so for me, it's always about reconnecting with the values and making sure that, oh, okay, I need to like have this front and center right now because this is what's coming up and I'm feeling some discomfort. Or it's a way to like just kind of understand when there's a lot of stuff going on in the outside world. This is what's so important to me. This is how I keep my center. This is how I keep my sense of peace and my ability to be resilient and to move forward is to have that set of values that I can rely on.
Absolutely. And you said that beautifully at 11:11 on the 11th
On
month of this
the
2022,
11th, yes.
right? So we got a lot of 11s right now. It's so exciting when that happens.
That's fabulous.
We like
Yeah.
that, right? Yes. Yeah. I just took a little screenshot.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Um, so because I do think there's that thing like that, the synchronicity of all of it, the looking for that moment of grace in all the things that we do and how our values can really help us do that and help us find some peace, some groundedness, some resilience, some sense of intuition, knowing when things are out of sorts, when we do feel
Mhm,
disconnected.
mhm.
And I hear a lot of people going through a lot of stuff right now. There's a lot of things up for people. And whether that's in personal life, in business, in the world, we know the world is having some trouble. So that we feel all of that.
Mhm, mhm.
So
And even in that, how do you establish a sense of well-being, knowing that there's so much happening, even in your life or just in the world in general? I think the values for me always helps me to reconnect not only to what's important, but to stay grounded. It's just such a way of staying grounded. And if I can look through the lens of my values, I see the world differently and I have a little bit more compassion, a little bit more understanding, a little bit more acceptance, even though the acceptance doesn't mean being complacent. It just means that, okay, I understand that there's a lot of forces and things happening out there. And I get to be kind of at the center of what's happening here. And I get to have some sense of, I guess, control, some sense of balance, some sense of, okay, I get to hold on to who I am, even though there's a lot of things happening out there in the world. And that's just extremely helpful for me.
yeah, for me too. I mean, I think that's why I so believe in this tool. Exactly that reason.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Because it's easy to kind of get lost out there. And that's how I found this, by being lost in a career and in a job that didn't, fulfill me. And I did feel lost. It didn't match who I was. And so it became something that was necessary to shift. And that's what the core values do, that in an instant can bring me back to myself
mm-hmm,
and remind
mm-hmm.
me with one or two words, oh yes, that's what's happening here. And it shifts the energy. That's where the blockage then gets removed, because like you said, it shifts your perception. And a shift in perception is a miracle, really. Like,
Yes, it is.
I didn't come up with that. That is part of the Course of Miracles, but it really is. When you say it that kind of pragmatically, it is a shift in perception. Oh, wow, I'm willing to see this differently. And it is different.
Right. Oh my God. That changes everything. You're right. It's a game changer. It's an absolute game changer because the situation might be exactly the same, but your perception of it is different. And the perception of it is what helps me to get through and to have, yeah, just to be more, I just keep going back to the word peace because it is so much more peace when
Yeah.
I'm not in struggle. When I'm not in struggle. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm never in struggle because I am sometimes. But
Of course, that's great.
going back to my values, going back to that sense of acceptance and that sense of just kind of knowing who I am and where I'm going and what is important to me and who I'm becoming. That makes all the difference in the world when I can hold on to that.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's the only thing I can hold on to.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I found that in my work sometimes when I'm working with a new client or something, I had an experience where my brain was putting it into kind of an old hierarchical structure. And what I needed was a shift. And so I went to my values, and one of my values is collaboration. And I was like, how can I see this differently? And as soon as I remembered collaboration, even it doesn't matter titles or any of those things. What mattered is my attitude and how I showed up, and can
Mm-hmm,
show
mm-hmm,
up in a spirit of collaboration, in a spirit of workshopping, a spirit of sharing ideas and looking for a common goal and trusting that everyone is doing the best they can and they're okay and I'm okay. And so collaboration is a different way to do business. And
mm-hmm.
it really shifted my experience and probably shifted my energy and their experience too. And because I was doing some writing and writing work for them, and it became I was stuck. I couldn't write because I was still trying in that mode of trying to please as opposed
Mm,
to
mm,
collaborate. So it
mm.
really got me
Okay.
out of writer's block in that regard.
Oh, that's fabulous. Oh, that's really fabulous. Yeah,
So
great example.
and that could work with a client situation, or it can work with my teenage daughter, doing laundry.
The laundry always comes up for you.
It really does. I mean, yeah, I
Oh
think
my gosh.
I think it was Jack Kornfield wrote a book. I think after the laundry or ecstasy after the laundry, or there's some book about like,
The
and yeah,
mundane. Yes,
it
the
is the
mundane.
simple things, the mundane, where so much beauty and love lies. It really does, in those things. And I know as she's a senior, so she'll graduate this year and be off to college next year, and I'll probably miss the damn laundry. The
Oh my
overflowing bat.
goodness.
It looks like it's our whole family's clothes because it's literally overflowing.
You will. You will.
Really just
Absolutely.
one
Oh my
person.
gosh.
And
That's
so,
great.
yeah, the laundry comes up. It used to be the dishwasher. And then now I have a really love affair with the dishwasher.
And,
Unloading
and
the dishwasher. I didn't mind loading the dishwasher. It was unloading the dishwasher. I don't know why it used to torment me when I was a young mom.
there's always something. I mean, there's always an edge, right? There's always an edge for us. And that's I guess that's the exciting part about life in a sense, is that there's always something to like get through and to find a different way of experiencing. If I think about just in the last couple of years, just the changes in terms of how I view things and
Mm.
the experience of life. I mean, it's always changing. It's always kind of, there's so much more ease now than I ever had before. And, I know that the values piece has been such an important part of that. And, there have been other things as well, but it's like, wow, to get to a place of just having so much more ease about things that used to be troublesome or that just
Right.
did my nerves or bother me. And it's like, oh, it's just so nice to be in a place where some of those things are no longer factors. And even when they are, there are things that come up, like if I think about some of my close relations and the things that I still get triggered by, I still get triggered by things.
Of course.
And
Yeah.
that's just part of it. But it's like, oh, just catching myself and remembering my value of leading with love and compassion, my value of bringing forth well-being through healing. just, like these are parts of me that like get triggered because they haven't been fully healed. And it's like, okay, there's an opportunity here. There's an opportunity for me to do something differently because this is coming up now. I don't like it, but that's okay. It's coming up. And so I have an opportunity to do something with it differently than I ever did before, so that in the future, it's no longer this big thing, So it's like, oh, there's always a chance. There's always an opportunity for just more, ease and grace and healing and just moving through things. And that part I find extremely exciting at this moment in my life. It's like, okay, I kind of welcome those things now. At least I can be more, I can have more equanimity in the midst of them, because I know that even though it's hard, it's like it's moving me closer to that sense of like, okay, being someone who can like live in that place of leading with love and compassion. And that's like super exciting and fulfilling, you know.
Right. It's a constant affirmation to yourself
Yes,
that
yes,
you're on the right path. It's
yes, yes, yes,
that, oh, right, this is the path I'm on. And
yeah.
having that clarity, right? Because it isn't always a linear path.
Mm-mm.
And so when it is like unclear and you're like, am I going the wrong way? And then you're like, oh, okay, no, this is the right way, even though I can't see over that hedge, it really that's where that inner compass idea comes from.
Mm-hmm. And that's why we've always used the just the notion of being on this journey, right? Being on a journey, and the values that we talk about, roadmap, we talk about other kinds of things that remind us that this is a journey. It isn't linear. Like, you don't know what's around the bend
Mm-mm.
necessarily. I mean, and that's kind of the truth of our existence, right? We pretend that we know, and we like to like think that we got it all figured out, but there's no knowing what's going to happen in the future, right? We can plan for it, we can do all kinds of things, but as it arises, as it comes up, then okay, there it is. Now you deal with it. Okay, so here we are. And I think that that whole point around the not knowing and like having trust is where my values really come into play, because
Mm.
yeah, sometimes I don't know. I'm in the midst of something and it's like, gosh, okay, at this stage of the game, I've never been through that in this way before. So it's new territory. It's new territory. But what do I do with it? What do I do with this new territory? Am I gonna like just like, oh, ah. No, there's like an ease that comes with like, okay, I'm living for my values. I'm doing these things. I know that I'm moving the dial. I'm moving forward. I don't exactly know how it's going to turn out, but I know that if I'm using my values as that compass, I know that if I'm using my values in a way that supports me and supports life and supports whatever it is that I'm doing, that no matter what, even though I can't see it, I know that it's going to be good.
Right.
I know it's ultimately going to be good. And it's like, okay. And then I get to tell the story about it when I have the full picture in front of me. But when I'm in the midst of it, I don't have the full picture in front of me. And I just have to
Right.
trust. And the values, knowing what my values are, being aligned with my values, helps me to walk that path, and to like know that there's something around the bend that I'm going to be equipped to manage that thing that's around the bend, because I have my values to support
Right. It's that tool that's always there. I
me.
call it
Mhm.
the portable advisory board.
Yes, that it. Yes, that's great. That's great.
Open
I love that.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can call them at any time. They're there and they have answers. It's amazing. Somebody always picks up. They're not like on a lunch break ever.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
available.
Yeah, it's just available. And that's beautifully said, because we don't know. It's there. That is kind of the nature of really actively living, and living at the kind of the heart of our life is to not know. I've spent so much of my life trying to control things, and it's impossible. It's caused so much pain in my life. And I used to be a hide under my desk kind of person. And so that does not really work. So,
Tell me more about that. What do you mean by hide under your desk?
so
I'm
I
intrigued by
was
that. You haven't shared that part before.
I haven't. Oh, okay.
Uh-uh.
So when I was a studio executive, and there were days, like there was a period of time where it just got too much for me, and the expectations, the constant fear of losing my job, the pressure, is this, it was just intense. It's a cutthroat industry, right? I was in my early 20s, mid 20s. And when I was a little kid, I used to hide under my dad's desk. And one day I was I was like a VP of production and acquisitions with my headset on, making calls with my assistant. And she came into my office and all she could see were my Prada boots sticking out of my chair, leaning on the chair. And she's like, Amy? And I'm like, I'm down here. I had an idea. I crawled under my desk and was literally rolling calls to agents, managers, actors, producers from under my desk. It felt like the only safe place I could go to handle life. Now, that was, 25, 26 years old. I did not have any tools to handle what was coming towards me. And gratefully today, I do not have to hide under my desk. I still have the feeling sometimes. I
Oh,
will tell you, like, it's, I still want to do that because there's that instinct that I'll feel safe under there. And I don't, and I've crawled out from under the desk, and I think, finding my way out of the desk has been that path of values, and finding myself in that so that I can match my work with who I am and make those decisions and give myself that kind of that sovereignty I need in my life, so that I know, even if someone outside, it's still hard for me. I still need that external validation, probably a little more than healthy, but it's getting better. Or it's a validation acknowledgement. I still like it, but it's so much more internal than it used to be. And so like you said, it's progress, not perfection. And I have found a spiritual path in that helps me take risks in ways I hadn't before. Doing this, monthly live Zoom, which we didn't even know what it would be when we started 2 years ago. Right?
During the pandemic, yes.
During the pandemic, we had this idea. I was like,
Oh my God.
every month at 11 a.m., let's talk about values. And we did it. And we've done it every month since then.
Yes.
That's 24 months of showing up on the 11th and talking about values. And that's a pretty amazing thing.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is.
I was thinking about it, like, the gratitude for you for putting this together, for this space to each month, and different people come different times. It depends on the day. That's kind of why we like it this way, right? Because you get different people who can come on the weekends when the 11th falls on a weekend versus during the week when it changes. But I have a lot of gratitude. And I thought maybe we could talk about what we're grateful for, because gratitude is one of my values, gratitude and grace. And I was thinking of, like, what do I do to celebrate? And a lot of times it's a form of gratitude. It's honoring, it's celebrating. We could do a woohoo for ourselves. I'm gonna give a woohoo.
I love that.
We did it. It's showing up. I'm really grateful we've shown up each month. It's felt good to do that. It felt anchoring.
I am too. I was writing about that this morning, and boy, what a difference 2 years has made. And just reflecting on how I experience myself differently, and part of it is a result of having gone through this. So yeah, we started in the pandemic, and there was so much going on. And you talked about safety, and I kind of wanted to come back to the safety piece, because I think that there's a part in there around our values, of really claiming and owning our values. It does provide that safety, because it's like it's having something in the wilderness. It's having these tools. It's having something to like anchor into. It's like having whatever you want to call it, your portable advisory board, or just this something that is helping you along the path, so that you're not alone right in the wilderness. And there is a safety in that. There's a safety in knowing, oh, okay, because there's because of the boundaries. Is the boundary part, right? Like the values help you to create boundaries, or to really understand what your boundaries are.
Right.
And that provides a sense of like safety and well-being and like, okay, I got this because I know that even though this may be happening here, or this person is participating in whatever drama, or this is going on, that doesn't have to be me, and it's not going to be me because I'm going to use this as my guide. I'm going to let this be the way that I move forward in life. And yeah, there was so much uncertainty back then. I mean, there still is, there always will be. So that's kind of the thing we live with. But it was just like, it was just so laden with uncertainty. There were so many things. I mean, we were in lockdown like back then, right? I mean, it was just, oh my God, who knew what the world was going to look like in 2 years? And just to embark on this and to say yes to it and to say, you know what, it's so important to have that grounding. It's so important to have that foundation for people, especially since a lot of people were isolated
Mm-hmm.
and not really as connected as they could be. And there's something about that physical connection that we were craving and didn't have.
Yeah.
Um, that was just so powerful to have to show up in the Zoom calls each month and to say, okay, we're taking a stand for the values, we're taking a stand for living from this place, for having that internal sense of who you are that will guide you even through this time, even especially through this time, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just grateful for the invitation to do this. I'm grateful that I said yes. I'm grateful that we've been able to just, just over the last 2 years, really kind of deepen in our own sense of, in our own exploration of our values. We've done a number of workshops during that time and have impacted people and have, for me, it's like, I'm almost at the point now where as I was looking at my values, I was thinking, you know what, it might be time to reframe them again
Yeah.
because you've got the core values, but the way that I name them will impact what happens in the future, what happens now and in the future. And I almost feel like ready for that reset. It's like, oh, it's even possible to refine these in a way that today supports the person that I become. So it's like, well, the values that were really important to me and still are, I might shift those a little bit because some of them are more internalized and there are others that I want to bring forth and say,
Right.
oh, yeah, I want to focus on these a little bit more. So that's what these 2 years have been about. And just extremely grateful for the grounding that it has helped to provide me, just and just loving the way that I'm showing up these days and this whole process and also just the ease of just getting on a Zoom call doing these things live. It's like, oh my gosh, so much easier than it was 2 years ago. And it's like, oh, I can see the progression, I can see the shifts, and yeah, it feels really good. So I'm just super grateful for that too.
Me too. Yeah, just being able to talk about things that we would have never, there isn't really a space to talk about too.
Mm-hmm,
How
mm-hmm.
do we talk about this and shift the narratives that are happening around us? That's such a key
Right.
piece to it. Well, thank you for sharing all that because
Oh
it's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and to be your friend and witness all of that. And I'm grateful you said yes, and I'm grateful you um, are showing up in the way that you have because it just it fills me up to be able to collaborate with you in this way and to put more love out there in this form. And I like to say like I splash around in the shallow end, but I really like to live in the deep end. And these are deep end conversations. So there aren't that many places that can create a safe space to have that happen and
Mhm.
talk about that. And so I appreciate that. And talking about like reflecting on our values last year, I did at the end of the year, a 4-day annual values review, which is a great time to really reflect on your values and see which ones were really lived this year, which ones could use a little bit more support. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's not even changing them. Sometimes it is like fine tuning them. Sometimes it's just lifting one up versus another.
Right. Yes, yes, yes.
Realizing, oh, this one's been a little quiet lately. and then I choose that word or that value as my word for the year to help give it more leadership, or lead with it, because we tend to have in our set, we tend to have our go-tos. We tend to have our 2 or 3 minor. Sustainability and integrity are the ones that I tend to go to more than anything. And then the last 2 years I picked flourish in 2021, and 2022 has been connection. And then those have been really brought up more and more. So we'll see what next happens in which one I'll pick for 2023.
Yeah, I love that. Yes, yes, yes.
And it doesn't make the ones that we go to wrong. It just means that we have to again harmonize the others, because anything, like too much of anything, can be an overgrowth, so like
Even in a beautiful garden.
a beautiful yeah, right. I love mint, but if you plant mint in the garden, that's just a little too much.
Uh-huh.
So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
so a
Yeah.
little bit of boundaries and a little bit of understanding how these other values work, which is why we like the set of 5 to 7, because it
Mhm,
allows for that harmonization
mhm, mhm, mhm.
to come in.
Yeah, yes, yes, you're absolutely right. And I agree about elevating values as necessary because of life circumstances or just where you want to go and whatever you have in mind for your intentions going forward. And what I've discovered when I was talking about just like, oh, I might need to revisit them, is one of the things that the values that I don't feel represented here in my list of values is around tribe and connection. And in the last year, that has become such an important part of my life, in the program that I was in, the entrepreneurial leadership program, and just in terms of where I am in my life, that is not like that has not been one that I really talked about or thought about a whole lot, because I've always had my family and I always had a few key people in my life, but it feels more, I'm feeling the pull more toward a deeper connection, more connection with other individuals than I ever felt before. And that tribe of people that have been such an amazing support and joy to know and to like be able to be present, to be witnessed by, right? And I see how it's been something that I've longed for a very long time. And now to have that be more present for me, it's like it feels a lot more elevated. And yet in my values, I don't see that. And
Mm,
that particular word, I can find it in there somewhere, but it's not exactly present. And so it's
right.
like, okay, so where is a place that fits? Because it's like, the value of courage doesn't show up anywhere either, but I know where that resides because that's kind of foundational to everything else. So is it possible that this one is something that I can incorporate into what exists, or if I need to tweak or kind of like look at what my four words and phrases are and make room for that one to
Yeah,
in the space.
yeah, I think that's an interesting one, because it's community or connection, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that could be an interesting one to see.
Mm-hmm.
Do that exercise, and that's kind of part of what the annual review does, right? There's different ways to do the annual review, but it's we've talked about this before, like there's certain words like love and courage that could be its own value for some people, but for a lot of us it's in all of ours.
Exactly. It's in there.
And that
Mm-hmm.
sense of belonging could be as well, or the
Mm-hmm.
community, and it's a matter of going through each one and spending a calibration effort of
Mm-hmm.
how does it exist in this value.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost
Exactly.
like the last step, doing the last step with the community. I think it's one
Right.
of the pillars too.
And is bringing it into life. Yes.
It's like the pillars of community, and our world, it kind of expands, but it's the group
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The collective. Yeah.
collective, right? And then going through each value and asking yourself, okay, grow and flourish. What does that look like? How does community relate to that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's the two-way street, right? So it's how does grow and flourish look like what I bring to a community? And how does grow and flourish look like a community? Like, oh, community must be part of what I need to grow and flourish.
Right, exactly.
And
Yes.
I bring,
And even the word community, like community conjures something different for me. So I'm not even sure that that's the right word. You know what I
right,
mean? But
yes, I was putting that on
it's like,
my
yeah,
brain.
I know. And it's
Yeah.
like, and so these are the questions. And this is what I love about the values work is because, having been at this for a couple of years, in the context of discovering your core values, the clarity that I have, and then what's on the horizon for me, it's like, oh, okay, there's something deeper here. So it's like, even like recognizing and finding the word and phrase that's going to really like
Light you
resonate
up.
the way
Yeah.
that all the other ones have is like, that's like, okay, I think that might be up for me right now to actually do that.
Yeah. The other way to check your values, which is the inner compass worksheet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've done that recently or not. I've had to do it a couple times, but just go, oh yeah, let me put them in here. Because sometimes our values are too similar. So they're
Exactly.
right. We may have 7, but they're one or two of them are too similar. So they kind of overlap. And that means there's this hole missing, which is, okay, how do I relate to a more of a group? Right. Because there's some that are relating to ourselves and
Mm-hmm.
bring
Mm-hmm.
that to a group. But what about stepping outside of it? And
Exactly. And that's the upcoming work. I'm excited about that because that's
yeah,
the
that's part
upcoming
of the
work.
calibration, our calibrate the inner compass, our second
Mhm.
workshop in the series.
Yes, 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 yes,
Part
yes.
two. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's meaningful, I think, because it does ask us to self-reflect, to self-examine, and in a world that is more intent on keeping us distracted and focused outward and not pay attention to the things that are happening around us or where our money is going, or don't look here, look over here. But when you do, or when I've done values work, I'm much more able to see things that I probably would have missed when I'm just so busy and not paying attention.
Mhm, mhm. Right. And this is like the perfect time of year for that. I mean, this is the time when I always do so much reflection because, birthday's coming up, end of the year is
Right?
coming up. It's winter, and winter is the time of going inward. Winter is the time of, that where there's some dormancy, where there's growth and things are happening, but it's under the surface. So it's like, it's just a perfect time
Yeah.
to like, okay, like reflect on those things.
Yeah.
And see.
Absolutely. And I
What are
think,
my intentions? What are my intentions going forward? What do I want? What's working?
mhm,
Where kind of like where I've been and where I want to go. That's the place that always happens for me around this time of year.
right. Yeah.
It's
And
just
and one of those tools is, like, you said, like looking at the values and see how they have been lived
hmm hmm
or not, and recalibrating them and fine tuning.
hmm hmm
I've definitely had to adjust my definitions and challenge the words before. I think I've talked to you about that, where I was looking at sustainability and is that the word I still want, because it's gotten so overused and greenwashed over the time, and I'm like, is that still the right word for me, or is it regenerative, or is it biomimicry, or is it
hmm hmm
something circular, is it something different? And I came to still settle with sustainability because of how I choose to define it and
For
what it means to
definition.
me. And I brought in the word regenerative and even biomimicry into my definition of it, right? Because I apply sustainability, not just, it's about my reverence for the natural world and taking care of the planet so that future generations have a planet. And we take care of our needs to an extent, but not exploit it so that the future generations can't have it. And so but regeneration is part of that.
Yes.
Looking, at nature for cues on how to do business, how to develop product, that is biomimicry, how to heal. So that is all part of sustainability for me. And so I decided to keep that as my value, but infuse my definition
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
richer when
Love
I
that.
for myself.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a
It's
lot
a
of
good
sense.
time of year to do that because it's it's darker earlier, the self-reflection. I love lighting candles and letting
Mm-hmm.
that light shine
Mm-hmm.
in and offer introspection and yeah. So and to give ourselves the chance to kind of check ourselves. We talk about being accountable, not to externally to be self-judgmental, but to be accountable to ourselves so that we can see what's working and what's not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love what you said about looking toward nature because that is like so central to how I view life and how I look at things is like, oh, there's so many clues for us about how to do things better and just how to understand what's happening around us that nature provides. That's always been so important to me is to, gosh, just in all of it, just in this simplicity. I just bought some little orchids and they're sitting in the window and they're just absolutely so gorgeous. But that whole cycle of this, just watching the plant and all of its cycles has been so powerful for me as a metaphor for an understanding of life itself and understanding of my place in it. And yeah, so just nature is just central to how I
Right.
just like move through life using that as my guide. And I love that. I love what you said about that. The sustainability piece and the regenerative aspect of it.
Right. Yes, exactly. And that was really important to me to add to my definition because we define our values in the workshop and that count at that level too.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because it's important to know what we're talking about when we say these words.
Because
And
they're so different for everybody, not necessarily everybody, but any word that you choose as a word for your values is going to be very personal in terms of how you define it. And that's the beauty of it. I think that's the part that in the workshop is so powerful because they are so different. So I might say um curiosity and wonder, and that's going to mean something for me that's going to be very different for somebody else
right.
in terms of how that looks, how that shows up. And it's anchoring it into the point where it just like resonates with you and you can just take that word and phrase and just know exactly what's underneath it. That's the powerful part.
Right.
Then it becomes shorthand for something much deeper, right? And all the deepness is in that definition, is in the defining and really understanding it for yourself.
Absolutely.
And
Right.
that's why I love that you've kept sustainability, even though, yeah, it might be, as you said, greenwash. It might be gotten to the point where it's like self-care. It's like some of those phrases that get tossed around so much so they lose the
Right.
value. But knowing what that value is for you and knowing what it means for you still, it's still a powerful, powerful word
Right.
for you. And I
Right.
love it. I love the clarity about that.
Right. And I use it for my health. How do
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
how do I have sustainability within my health, which refers to nature and looking towards nature for that.
Yeah.
And sustainability in my business. If I'm not sustainable in how I approach my business, it's not going to thrive. And so it has to be able to regenerate. It has to be able to kind of continue to go. And so I like
Mhm.
to have that as a way to expand what that means. So it does have that impact
Mhm.
when I talk about it as a value. And where somebody, it's not, I mean, recycling is part of it, but that's not it.
It's a part of it. It's not the totality of it. And that's the beauty of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
for you. And that's the
Yes.
key. It's so personal. And I love that because it makes it so much more usable,
Right.
powerful.
And what happens is we don't tell you what your values are. We ask an inquiry based, we created an inquiry based process for them to, we guide them through that process
Mm-hmm.
that helps find it out for them, each of you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that becomes really powerful. And when I've been working with teenagers, like they haven't been asked these questions before. And so it's exciting to see that for young people. Care about a lot of things. So, and as I tell them, and I tell when we talk about on our workshops too, we are living our values whether or not we know them.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Right? You are making decisions every day, saying yes or no to what you buy, what you eat, how you spend your time, how you spend your resources, what's in your closet, what's in your fridge, what's in your car, what you're liking on social media, who you're following. So, you're making a judgment on your values, making a decision based on your values. So if you aren't crystal clear about what your values are, you're gonna start to feel that.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness.
That leads to disconnection and depression and disassociation, even like, God, this isn't working. My life isn't working. And sometimes it gets down to those little things, like how we're living our life, because each of those decisions makes up a life. It really does. So it's a powerful thing to think about. So what we do here is we're like, well, let's talk about it. Like, what are we saying when you do that? Bring it to the surface to have a conversation. And know what they are.
There's something that's always been so powerful about naming something, naming it.
Yes.
And especially true with naming the values, as you said. You do operate from them, but to name them gives them a different significance, because now it's like, oh, I didn't realize that I was so focused on this, and that's really not what I want. Or I'm glad that now I know that this part is like, this is so much of who I am, and I want to continue to nurture that, because it does bring me that sense of well-being to have this at the forefront of my life. So it's just getting that clarity, and naming is so powerful too.
Yeah, and that naming process really becomes a tool, like we've been talking about, to go full circle. Then that set becomes the advisory board. And I've worked with clients who thought they had to leave their job because it didn't align with any of their values, but they hadn't done the clarity yet, the work yet to know. Then once they did, and they named their values, and then they held it up against it and looked at it, and they were like, oh, actually, it is this. And so they shifted their perception, ended up staying, asking to do more of certain things, but were able to work with, instead of just dropping and going, and cut and run, which is unfortunately, I think, far too common. Right. And others have had to leave because they're like, I had to leave my industry and job because it didn't align with my values in a profound way. And that's when I learned my value of integrity. So there's not just one answer here. It's not like your values are going to say leave or stay, but they will give you insight into your decision making that will help, that could surprise you.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's at the core of this. It's having this tool, it's having this tool that you can use as your inner compass, as your guide, to just help you with making decisions, to help you with the clarity, to help you with moving forward in your life, and just knowing that you're in the right space, you're doing the right thing for you, right? It's kind of this authentic kind of inquiry, and this authentic kind of knowing that it's powerful.
Right.
To use the values in that way, because my gosh, it just, clarity is amazing. Certainly has been in my life. It's like, oh my gosh, yes. More, please.
Yes. Yeah, really, it is. It's a superpower.
Yeah, and that's part of the process too. Going through the core values work is getting to that place of naming and getting the clarity, and then creating a plan for moving forward.
Right. And I was just talking to a client about this, and I said to her, because she was kind of struggling, and we were meeting again, and then she was making the time to do the work in between our sessions, and And I just said, it's simple, but it isn't easy. If it was easy, you would have done it by now and it wouldn't have been no big deal. But it's not like it's hard, but it does take some effort and mental presence, which is, it takes the presence to do it. It takes that creating the space to do the work. And so, which is what we like to create in the workshops, but also there is some things to do on your own.
Mhm.
And but it sounds simple, but it is actually pretty deep. And therefore the rewards are so great.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
Gives you that lasting impact. Because once you go through it, you do have this tool that is so useful. As we've talked about,
It's a game changer.
it's a game changer, right? And like anything, you then each year get to, sharpen it, or put oil on it, like nourish it, bless
Yeah.
it, your
Yes, yes,
little
yes.
values, right? They don't put them on a wall and just let them sit there to not be used. That's, I think, that's why we created this, to talk about living them, because it's not about just, putting them on a wall and or on a website and be like, okay, these are my values. Isn't that great?
Oh my God, it's the whole thing. It's
It's a whole thing.
the
Yeah.
whole thing, just living from that place.
Yeah. It's a really different way of living.
Mhm.
It's really different. And there are a lot of twos today. So we've got our 2nd-year anniversary, the 11, 22. It's kind of cool.
It's very cool. It's very cool.
Two of us.
Yeah, it's been an honor and a joy to do this every month. And I just always feel fortified and nourished and clear and hopeful after each of these conversations, because it does something, because it just helps to validate for me what's important.
Right.
And that always feels really good to know, okay, I'm doing what's important. Yes, I'm in a good place because I am using these tools. I am using my values to guide me
Yeah.
to navigate life. And that always feels like, okay, even if I don't know, it feels great.
Yes.
So it's been amazing. It's been really good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Sheila.
Oh
Thank you if you're still watching.
my goodness. Oh my
Recording.
goodness. Yes.
Yeah. There's so much to be grateful for. And we're doing it. Woohoo!
Yes. Woohoo. Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, we're signing off on the 11 2022.
2022. Yes. Yeah.